Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Confessions of a Gaming Mum. So today, because it's World Breastfeeding Week, although by the time you actually watch this video that would have been last week, but still, yeah, I thought I'd do a video about my own breastfeeding journey, because although I've talked about it in a few of my videos already, I thought it would be good to actually just do a video purely on it. It's probably not going to be like a very long video. I think I've actually been quite lucky in that my journey hasn't actually been full of like a lot of challenges and things like that. I've actually had it quite easy, but I know there's a lot of people that haven't. So for those that have actually stuck to it, even though they've come across all these hurdles and these challenges, you have like my utmost respect for it. And it's kind of the reason why we need a breastfeeding week, because one, again, we need to normalize breastfeeding, because it's still seen as like this taboo thing if a woman tries to breastfeed in public, which is just pathetic, because it's the most natural thing you can see and you don't even see anything anyway. And the fact that in the UK we have like a depressingly low percentage of women that actually breastfeed, and even lower is the percentage on how many breastfeed after 6 months. I mean, the World Health Organization actually says that, or recommends that you should breastfeed up to 2 years while the baby's still getting the nutrients from you. The amount of people that, or the amount of women that are still breastfeeding when their child has reached the age of 2 is just tiny, and it's quite sad, because you just have these like formula companies just bombarding you with like the fact that your breast milk isn't enough, or some women can't produce enough milk, which is a load of bullshit, because pretty much I think the actual fact is, like the scientific fact is, like 2% of women physically can't breastfeed. The others, they just haven't had the right support, or they've just been brainwashed by, like I said, formula companies telling them that they're not sufficient to be able to naturally feed their own child, which is just incredibly sad, pathetic, and it needs to stop. But anyway, moving on from that, I just, like I said, I wanted to, this video is about my own breastfeeding journey, and how basically 10 months down the line I'm still breastfeeding. Not as much obviously as when I first started, but we're still going strong, and I don't see us stopping for a while. It's I think we're both happy with how it's going. I'll start at the beginning anyway, for those that don't know like the story. Basically, if you haven't watched my birthing story, go and watch it. If you've got the time and the patience, and you're alright with like TMI and sort of stuff going on. So yeah, basically, if you haven't watched it, my son was born 1 week overdue. There was a few issues in terms of he actually got stuck because he's got such a bloody big head, and he was back to back as well. So he actually was born with forceps, which was, I mean, he was fine. I mean, he had a few sort of they say they have headaches. Like the babies that are born with forceps can have headaches because obviously the pressure on their skull when they've been forced out, and also their neck. And he had like really bad problems with his neck. Like whenever you picked him up, he would like make this yelping sound, obviously, where he had like pains in his neck, bless him. But they were giving him paracetamol all the time just to try and help him with the pain. But one thing he also had, because of the way the forceps had clamped on his face, was he had some nerve damage in the top of his lip, which meant that, well, they called it palsy basically. What had basically happened was, yeah, the nerves had been damaged, so he couldn't actually purse his lips. So when I tried to, well, I first gave him skin on skin, because I didn't actually see him for the first, well, I held him like in the first hour of him being born, but then he was actually taken to an ICU for a few hours, so I didn't see him or I didn't get to hold him properly for like the first sort of 6 hours of his life. And it was 4 hours after the first hold I got to, when I first got to hold him. It was 4 hours after that, after giving him like a dose of antibiotics and stuff because they thought he had an infection. Yes, it was after, yeah, it was 4 hours after that I got to give him properly skin on skin, and also tried to breastfeed him. There was a midwife with me showing me how to position him, and also like to see, because I said like I haven't had any leaking throughout my pregnancy, so I knew it would be quite a struggle to get my milk in, and I didn't really know the process of it at this time. I was quite naive in terms of how it would all work. It's only later down the line that I realised what I should have been doing, and I think if I had been doing that, then probably I would have solved it a lot quicker, and we would have started the breastfeeding journey a lot quicker. But still, anyway, I'll get to that later. So yeah, so this midwife was with me, and she was showing me how to get him to latch, how to position myself, how to hold him and everything to make sure we were both comfortable. And literally he would just put his lips around like on the boob, but he couldn't get a latch because his lips just could not make those movements, because the muscles were just gone, that he needed in order to be able to make the latch. And it was only then that they basically said to me that was because he had palsy in the mouth, and that must have been due to the like muscle damage from forceps. So what I didn't actually realise at that point, although I should have done, I don't know why I didn't think it, was obviously in order for me to be able to produce milk, I needed him to be able to latch in order to stimulate the breast, in order to be like, oh, you've had the baby, therefore you need to be producing milk. But yeah, didn't think that. So basically the midwife said to me, well, your baby needs to eat because his stomach is going to be filled with so much mucus and just so much crap that he needs to be either poop it out or vomit it out. So we need to feed him, and she was saying you kind of need to force feed him with something, because obviously their stomach's full, so they won't think they're hungry. In the end, because she said, oh, are you planning to breastfeed, or are you happy to formula feed? And I was like, no, if I can breastfeed, I was like, I'll try everything I can to breastfeed. If it gets to a point that I know it's physically impossible for me to breastfeed, like my milk doesn't come in or he just rejects it or whatever, then I'll accept that I'll go on to formula, because I had formula with me anyway. And she said, okay, well, what you need to do is they give you these little cups, because it encourages the baby to simulate. It's like how they feed from the cup. It's like not just like a regular cup, it's a specially designed cup. I'll post a picture somewhere on here of what they look like. It helps them to replicate how they would actually latch onto the breast. So obviously him doing that means he won't get used to the teat of a bottle, and it also helps him to exercise those muscles so that he would eventually be able to latch. And again, unfortunately, because I hadn't produced any milk, it meant I had to accept the fact that until we were able to get a decent latch and until my milk could come in, he would have to be on formula, which at the time I was kind of like, as long as he's fed, I don't really care. I mean, now it's a bit painful to think that I wasn't able to give him any colostrum, like my own colostrum, which is obviously the first milk that comes in. They basically call it liquid gold because it's full of so much goodness for a newborn baby. It's full of everything they need, and yeah, and I couldn't give him that, and that really does upset me sometimes when I'm in like my low points. It does actually quite upset me. So we were kind of in that bind in terms of obviously he couldn't latch, so I couldn't stimulate the breast to produce milk. So we're kind of in that sort of vicious circle, and they said, like, just try a couple of minutes when you know he needs feeding, just try to get him to latch, and if he doesn't latch, then obviously call us and we'll come in and help you feed him. And rather than using the formula that I had, they actually gave me the ready-made milks, and they heated them up to become like body temperature sort of thing, so he got used to drinking milk at body temperature, which would be the same as breast milk. But yeah, and I just remember like when they gave him the cups, and they were like, oh, we're supposed to purse his lips, and I think they're supposed to like lap it up like a cat, like you see their tongue, and that's what, like, because obviously that's what they do when they're on the breast, but you actually get to see it with the cup. He didn't do that, he just glugged it because he was just so greedy, and he just would just like glug all this milk back. Yeah, and I'd be constantly trying to, like I said, latch him onto the breast, but he just couldn't do it because his lips just weren't working. There was obviously no milk coming from me, so he would get agitated, I'd get upset, so we'd call the midwives in and stuff like that. And it got to a point, I think it must have been like 2 or 3 days, because we were staying in hospital. We stayed in hospital, I think, for 5 days after he was born, because they thought he had this infection, so he had to keep going to NICU to have these antibiotics. So it was kind of good that we had that, because obviously if we'd gone home straight away, I wouldn't have had a clue what to do or whatever, or had any help, whatever. So yeah, I think it would have been quite hard for me to have tried to continue this at home. But yeah, I think it was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and I tried to get him to latch, and again he wouldn't latch, and he was crying, and I was just absolutely exhausted. So we called the midwife, and she came in, and she swaddled him. She was, because you get to know like the different midwives that are on shift at different times, and this one, she'd taught us how to swaddle him. So because he kept like with his arms, I think I think that was another thing as well, because he was in a lot of pain with his neck, and he'd be moving his arms, and that would make him even more uncomfortable and agitated. So he tried to feed him, and he'd just be wriggling about. So she showed us how to swaddle him properly, and he'd calm down a lot better, and he'd be a lot easier to feed. But I think she was in a mood or something. I think someone must have upset her or whatever, because she came in and like I asked for some milk, and she came in and she started questioning me, like, why aren't you, like, this is like your third day or whatever, aren't you trying, like, I thought you were meant to be breastfeeding him. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying, but he's still not latching and I'm not producing any milk. And then she just looked at me like this while she was feeding him, and I was just like, and she just said to me, are you even trying? And I just burst into tears at that point, because I was just like beyond exhausted. This is my first baby. I'd never sort of, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to get help, and as far as I was concerned, like, I was trying my best, and there was nothing I could do. I was like, well, what more could I do? Yeah, so I burst into tears. I don't think my husband was very happy as well with the comment, but he didn't. I think he was just trying to stay out of it. And obviously she saw me crying, and she was like, why are you crying? Are you in pain? Don't you realise what you just said to me? I was like, for fuck's sake. So yeah, so after that I just felt really, really low, and just, I think at that point I was almost close to giving up, actually. Yeah, I felt really low, and I just felt like giving up, because I was like, well, obviously I'm not good enough. I can't produce milk to feed my son because he can't latch. Not saying those that can't breastfeed aren't good enough, but that's just how I talk to myself. I'm constantly berating myself. So yeah, I felt like an absolute failure and stuff like that. So I just started to feel really fed up about it. When I rang the bell, again, because I tried again, and just nothing was happening. Like, he weren't latching, I weren't able to produce milk or whatever. I think by this point he was kind of latching, but because there was no milk, he was just getting frustrated because he was hungry. So and obviously now at this point he was used to being fed when he was hungry. So yeah, so he didn't really appreciate being latched onto a boob that wasn't doing anything. So yeah, I called the midwife in, and this is a new midwife that I'd not seen before. When I said about like what I was doing, like I was saying, like, he's had palsy, but it looks like he's recovering from it, but he's latching, but he's got a very weak latch, so, and nothing's happening. So she said, well, have you actually tried pumping? So I was like, well, no one's actually ever said to me. And thinking of it now, I really don't understand why no one actually did say it to me, because it really would have helped. And yeah, I said, like, no one's ever said to me about pumping. She was like, right, wait here, I'm gonna go and get one of our pumps. So it's like a big industrial thing that you plug in and you just sit there like milking yourself. So she said, wait here and I'll go and get one, and we'll see what will happen. And that was like a weird experience, because obviously, one, I wasn't used to a baby feeding from me, so I wasn't used to that sensation just yet. And yeah, and obviously no one had actually said to me about pumping, like to encourage my milk to come in. So yeah, she came in with this big thing on a stand, and she showed me how to use it and everything. And she said, right, and then just try this when he's feeding, like if he's being fed formula, you can try and latch him first. Obviously, if it doesn't work, get the formula milk. And when he's being fed, ask for the pump. So then you get that whole thing of when he's being fed, that's when your milk should be coming in, sort of thing. And I think it didn't take me literally, I think that day or the next day, my milk came in. And did it go? Jesus, I just remember like waking up in the middle of the night. It must have been like 2 o'clock in the morning or something, because I was in a hospital bed, and hospital beds aren't exactly comfortable. And I think I weren't laying on my front, because I used to lay on my front before I got pregnant, but then I got used to laying on my side. And yeah, I think I tried to switch over. So I was on like my right side, and I tried to switch over, and I just remember feeling like really heavy in my chest. And as I tried to switch over, like my boobs, they just felt so like stretched. And as I flipped over, I realised just how heavy they were. And as I flipped over, it was like having rocks in my boobs. As I flipped over, they kind of just went like, and it really hurt. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And only then I realised, obviously, I was a bit sweaty as well, because it's really warm on the maternity wards. And I was a bit sweaty, but my top by my chest was just absolutely soaked, because my boobs were so full, they just leaked everywhere. So I was like, okay, my milk has definitely come in. So I think when he next then woke up for a feed, or it was like 7 o'clock in the morning or something, so it was his first sort of morning feed, we tried again, and obviously he was able to latch on, and I was able to feed him. And that was just such a good feeling. Like, it was like, yes, after all these days of not knowing if I would be able to do it and if he would be able to do it, because like his latch wasn't very strong. I mean, it wasn't very strong at the beginning, but I think him being able to drink the milk meant that then he was able to it encouraged him, and it helped him to exercise the lip then to be able to latch properly. So that was a really good feeling. I was still pumping as well every so often, and it's really disgusting. I'm thinking that I've still got in the fridge the first ones that I actually pumped, because I keep meaning to like wash out the little they're only like little testing tube things. So because they were like, just in case he isn't latching properly, it means that I could feed him my milk in a cup rather than obviously having to ask for formula. I could still have the cup but feed it to him like that. But obviously I didn't need to, because then after that he was fine. So that was really the only challenge I had with breastfeeding, was actually getting started. And it's one of those things where you look at it and you think and you can see it's so understandable why some women actually give up so quickly. I mean, I can understand to a certain extent why there's women out there that just won't even think about breastfeeding. Like if they've heard from friends that it's really hard, or they don't think they have the time, and like they'll have no time for themselves and stuff like that. And it's just, yeah, I don't get that sort of wait. Yeah, but I can understand when people hear that it's hard work and you might fail and things like that. I can understand why some people won't even consider it. But yeah, it's those that you really try really hard and it's just not happening for you. And I mean, all I can say is you just keep at it, and like try and get as much help as you can. I think that's the thing. It's not that there's women out there that can't do it. It's women out there aren't getting the support and able to be able to do it. Like I said, I think if that midwife hadn't said to me about pumping to encourage my milk to come in, then I probably would have just given up, and I wouldn't be such like an advocate for breastfeeding that I am now. So yeah, I think the success of a woman breastfeeding really does rely on, one, I think her own mental sort of determination in herself, like her confidence in herself, but also the support she'll receive from outside, like family, and also from like if you don't get support from midwives, then a lactation consultant is always a way to go. There's great breastfeeding support on Facebook as well. Breastfeeding Yummy Mummies is a group that I've been on since before I had my son. And they've always been really helpful in when I've had issues and stuff. We're now looking back and just thinking how hard it was then, and now it's just second nature. And yeah, like I said, I had it so easy, like in terms of I didn't even have I had sore nipples in the first sort of week or so, and they were a bit sort of like TMI again. It was like the skin was peeling, but I never had cracked or bleeding nipples. Never suffered from that. I had the nipple cream, and I put that on once just to try and stop it, just in case, because like I said, where the skin was peeling, and I was like, oh, the next stage might be them cracking and then bleeding and stuff. And I remember my mum talking about having really sore nipples and them cracking and bleeding, because me and my sister were both breastfed by my mum. I think my sister wasn't breastfed for as long as I was. I was breastfed for 6 months. But yeah, my mum always talked about, and she talked about having mastitis as well, which is when one of the milk ducts can get clogged, and then it can be like you end up having you can have like cold or flu symptoms, and then you'll have like your breast will just be really hot and swollen because it's all blocked, and you can get an infection and stuff like that. So it can be quite bad. My mum had that. I only had something similar when we went out. It was basically the first time we went out without the baby. He must have been about 3 months old, and we went to the theatre with a friend to see the show Hamilton, and I pumped a bit of milk. But at this point, and it's all through the breastfeeding journey as well, like because I've not really gone out much without him. I've gone on a few like evenings out and stuff, but not anything crazy. And I have to say, with an electric pump, I've never been able to get that much milk, and I managed to get like just enough, I think, for him to be able to manage on that evening that we went out. And we'd just managed to get him to accept a bottle as well, because he just would not accept a bottle. Like he didn't even accept a dummy. He used to spit out dummies if you tried to give him a dummy. We got him a special bottle. Again, I'll post a picture of the one that we got, that was as close to a normal breast as you can get. And even then, he wouldn't accept it unless you had the milk, like a specific temperature, the bottle was warmed, you're holding him in a special position. Like, he was just so fussy, but we finally managed it, because that was my main stress. I was like, I'm not going to be able to go if he can't feed. But luckily, and because my mum's quite a natural obviously with feeding babies, and she's quite relaxed as well, she's quite laid back about it, and I think because she had that attitude, she wasn't stressing about it. I think that helped with the situation. But yeah, it was that evening, because obviously I hadn't fed for probably like 6 hours or something like that. My boobs were just so full, and when we got home, he'd had his nighttime feed. So, and at this point in his life, the memories, he actually slept all the way through. He'd sleep from like 9 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning or something, and he did that for like a good few months, and then just all of a sudden he now wakes up several times in the night. But yeah, and that was at the time that he slept all the way through. So because he'd had his nighttime feed, he then didn't wake up until like, yeah, 6-7 o'clock the next morning. And because we got home quite late, I was too tired to sit there and pump. I was like, no, if he hopefully he'll wake up, because sometimes he still woke up during the night. We'd have the odd night where he would wake up for like a little bit of a top up, and I thought he would, because where he hadn't had like it from the breast, I thought that might mean that he would wake up for a top up sort of thing, but he didn't. So in the end I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, because I think it was my right boob, because my right boob has always produced more than my left, so it's always my right boob that's always leaked a bit more. My right boob, if he unlatched, it would spray everywhere. And like my right boob that, yeah, would always feel more full, and that I would be able to, if I was to pump, that I'd produce a lot more from. Yes, it was my right boob that was feeling really, really sore and like quite bruised and just rock solid. So I just could not sleep. I had to get up, and I was sat on the sofa 5 o'clock in the morning downstairs pumping, because it was just so painful. For like that whole day, my boob, like I just had this big red mark like just underneath my breast, and like quite like a red lump, and it was really, really hot. Like the lump was really, really hot, and it, yeah, my whole boob just felt really, really bruised. So I was like, oh shit, this is like the start of mastitis. I've gone and fucked up now, haven't I? So basically I'd like seen some people say, like, if you ever feel anything like this, the best thing to do is just get the baby to feed exclusively on that breast, just to try and clear the blockage. And luckily, me getting him to feed on that breast pretty much all day, the next day, and I had a hot shower as well, so I was holding like a hot flannel on it, and I was massaging it like constantly just to try and remove the blockage. The next day it had completely gone, so I'd like just managed to avoid getting mastitis, so I was very, very lucky. And that's the only time I've had that issue. I did have a lot of stress in the coming months, because of I'd had that stress. I hadn't produced enough for him that evening. Luckily I had, but it was just enough, so I had no more like sort of stock in the freezer of my milk. So then I started to stress, because we had a few extra evenings coming up, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to produce enough. So I was trying to get into a habit of using the pump, but it was that whole thing of knowing when to do it, because obviously even though he was over 6 weeks, because they say you shouldn't pump over when you're under 6 weeks, because you need to normalise your supply, let the baby normalise your supply. But yeah, I just couldn't work out when to use the pump. And whenever I did try and use it, because what I was trying to do was always get my husband to bottle feed some express milk, so I'd express some, give it to my husband, and then he'd try and feed him. But my husband's one of those people who's quite stressy and a bit anxious when it comes to this sort of stuff, and because he's been in a family where there's never really been babies for him to feed, so he has no experience of bottle feeding, so he didn't know how to hold him, he didn't know, and I think our son kind of got he fed off the anxiousness, and it made him not accepting, so he constantly rejected my husband trying to feed him, so he had that stress as well. But anyway, it was kind of like it was one of those things where before he was born, that was the goal, in terms of I'd express enough, so then my husband every so often would, or like once a day maybe, would be able to feed our son from the bottle. But it just never worked out like that, and like I said, I was trying to encourage it for my husband to be able to do it, but it just led to him getting really stressed and really upset, because he felt like he was failing. So in the end we just gave up on that, and I was just like, no, I'll just exclusively breastfeed, but I'll try and pump, so then we can still still go out, like, because we had booked things with our friends before we'd even, like Hamilton we'd booked before we even knew we were having a baby. So it was like there was things like that, and like we were going out with my parents to the theatre as well. Again, it was something that we'd booked the Christmas before and things like that. So it was like there was all these things we had booked up we needed to sort of prep for him to be able to have enough to feed from. And yeah, I just remember getting really stressed because I just was not producing enough. I'd be sat there for like 30 minutes and I'd barely produce anything, and yeah, it really stressed me out, really upset me. And then I found out about something called a Hakka pump, and it's basically this silicone pump, and basically what it does, it just relies on its like the suction. So it's like a silicone thing that you just clamp onto your boob, or you pinch it in. It's like a little funnel. I'll post a picture of it so you know what it looks like. But yeah, it's got this little funnel bit at the bottom and a little stand. But you squeeze in the funnel as you put it on the boob, and then you let go, and the suction then encourages your boob to produce the milk. But when you use it, because you tend to not produce anything if you're just sat there with it on. But when you use it is when your baby is latched onto the other breast, because obviously what you get then on the other breast is something called a letdown, and it's a weirdest feeling. I can't really describe it, but you can actually feel the other breast leaking, because I don't even know why it does it. There's probably some biological reason why it does it, but like yeah, you can actually feel like milk being expelled from it. Again, another reason why you wear breast pads, so you can feel the milk coming out. So having the Hakka pump, I was able to produce so much leftover milk. I had like so much in the freezer because the Hakka pump was just absolutely perfect for me. It only got to a point that my son started kicking. I wasn't able to hold the Hakka pump on for very long, because where he was then kicking it off and almost like kicking the milk all over the sofa. So in the end, yeah, I mean, we lasted a good few months. Like I said, I produced a lot of milk like that. So I would say if you try an electric pump and it doesn't work, maybe try a Hakka pump, because they are really, really good. I'll leave a link in the description on, I think, Amazon. I think I got mine from Amazon. I'll leave I think a lot of the stuff I got, like the boob bottle, I got from Amazon as well, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. But yeah, so that was another, I guess that was like the other real challenge I faced with breastfeeding. Another challenge as well was when he started teething, and I always ask for advice on this because I'm quite an anxious person, so I felt like not giving up, but it just made me very nervous, and it made me very anxious every time he fed, because when he started teething, he'd then nip the nipple and it got to a point, it was like you didn't know when he was going to do it, and it would be quite sharp and it would be quite sudden, so it was, and it's quite painful as well. And sometimes you do it where he would just nip, like if he was falling asleep on me, he might then all of a sudden like jolt awake and then he'd nip me. That was fine, but then it got to a point where he had to, because his teeth came through quite quick. He's 10 months now and he's already got 8 teeth, and we think he's teething his molars as well at the moment. So he was about 4 or 5 months and he had 4 teeth. He had 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And it was fine when the teeth at the bottom came through, because obviously he had his tongue in the way when he was latched on, so he didn't feel it. It's when his teeth at the top came through that this started to become a problem. But he got to a point as well where you knew he was full, because then he would bite and like he'd sort of clamp down and he would not let go, and it would be so painful, and then I'd panic and I'd be trying to get him off and he'd just clamp down harder. And that's what made me really anxious about feeding, and I'd ask for like advice on it and people would just be like, no, you just have to take him off and that's his punishment, he won't get any milk now because you've taken him off because he hurt you. And I was but he just kept doing it. There was even taking him off, he just saw it as a joke, and he was kind of like, well, I finished my feed anyway, so it's not like I'm losing out on anything. So yeah, that was another like sort of hurdle that I had to face, like, and he wasn't kicking so much at that point as well, so I was still using the Hakka pump. But because of him biting, it made me so anxious that I was just like, no, I literally was just watching him to see if I could see any signs that he was about to bite me. It got to that point. So I just lost interest in the Hakka pump and I haven't used it since. Luckily he's stopped with that biting. I mean, that lasted a good few months actually, probably like 3 months I think that lasted. But the thing is now, I mean, when he was 6 months we started baby-led weaning. And they say to start with like 1 meal a day, and then you like the next month then you start with 2 meals, and then eventually by 9 months he should be on 3 meals a day and should have dropped a feed. And with him, he was quite good with food. Like he'd be a bit fussy at first and a bit like apprehensive on what to do with it. I think he gagged really badly when we gave him a carrot stick one, like it was cooked, and he ended up being sick, and I don't think he liked that, and that kind of stuck with him for quite a while. So we had to go back to like mashed up food for a while, but then we started to bring in like solid food but softer food like bananas and stuff like that. But yeah, now he's actually really, really good, and he has, it's 3 meals a day, and we'll have like moments like sometimes he won't eat his breakfast or he won't eat his lunch, but most of the time he eats really, really well. And it's got to a point now that he won't take a feed during the, like off me during the day. Like he'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5, most of the time at the moment he wakes up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I'll feed him. And again, he's got this thing where he'll only feed for like 10-15 minutes, and then he falls asleep on me for another 40 minutes. So I'm just laying there for like an hour just like, oh my god, just get off. You're not feeding anymore. You're just like using me as a dummy right now. But I mean, I don't mind, because I just like cuddling up with him and stuff, so it's nice. It's not going to last forever, is it? So making the most of it. People are like, oh, he's using you as a dummy, oh, you made a rod for your own back, blah blah blah. It's like, I don't care, it's not going to last forever, so whatever. He'll have his feed first thing in the morning, like I said, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Then he'll probably have a nap and then wake up at like 7, 8 o'clock. And then he'll have solids, so he'll have his breakfast, he'll have his lunch. He might have a feed off me between lunch and dinner if there's a long wait between lunch and dinner, or if he's not well, or it's really hot, or he's just a bit antsy, then he'll feed off me. But other than that, he won't actually then feed, so he'll go from 5:30 in the morning until bedtime, which is about 8:30, 9 o'clock. So he'll go all that time, so the whole day without feeding. But then he'll have that feed of a night, and either he'll fall asleep, or a lot of the time what he actually does is he's even more wired, so then he won't actually go to sleep until we go to sleep at like 11 o'clock. But then he'll wake up once, maybe twice in the night, and those will be the only feeds he has. So yeah, he has 2 or 3 feeds of a night, and then that'll be it. So yeah, he's not feeding through the day. And yeah, he's been doing that for about 6 weeks, or well, longer than that, like two months, maybe like 10 weeks, something like that. It was only recently, one, because of the really hot weather that we had, and also because of we both had a summer cold, like really, really bad summer cold. We kept giving it to each other, which is obviously really annoying because of that. So I was trying to give him breast, but it was so annoying because obviously where he's not been feeding off me very much, my milk has almost practically dried up. There's not a lot there at all. Like when he feeds, I don't feel the letdown, I don't leak. So like I've stopped wearing like my nighttime nursing bras because there's no point, because I don't leak. I'll still wear like breast pads during the day just in case. But yeah, I don't have any of that feeling that I did when I had plenty of milk. So I started getting really paranoid that he didn't have enough, he wasn't getting enough milk off me. So it just got to a point I just had to put him on more during the day, and obviously if I couldn't feed him, at least he was getting the comfort from me. But yeah, so it's got to, that's kind of where we are in our journey in terms of, now he's not ill, and now that the temperature's gone down a bit, he's not really feeding off me as much again. So he's having that one feed during the day, and then the rest of a night first thing in the morning. Yeah, and that's where we are. He actually had his 1-year health assessment the other day, and we were talking to the health visitor about his feeding habits and stuff like that, because I said I was breastfeeding and stuff like that. And she, like we said, like the only time he was feeding was of a night, and she was like, no, you shouldn't be having night feeds. Like she was looking at him, and he just looked at her like, really? So you can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna be on that for a while. So yeah, that's really it. I mean, I've said a lot at the beginning in terms of, for those that are like, if you're just at the start of your breastfeeding journey, or you've hit a hurdle and you don't know if you should carry on, I wholeheartedly encourage you to keep going, because it's just such an amazing thing. It's such an amazing thing you're trying to do, and it's just such a super thing. It's this amazing gift we've been given, and I just think that all women should, or all mums should, at least try it before they take up the bottle. For one thing, it's free. Another thing, people moan about the fact that the dads don't get to bond. My son absolutely adores his dad. Like, you should see, like, he has the biggest smile for him when he comes home from work at the end of the day. And now he's crawling as well. He just crawls right up to him and just like climbs up him because he wants to have a cuddle. Like, there's other ways for dads to bond, like with, like, during the night. It's at a point, like, if I've just fed him and he wakes up like an hour after I've just fed him, I'm like so exhausted, my husband gets up and he'll settle him down for me. So rather than settling him on the boob, my husband gets up and just cuddles him for half an hour and then puts him back down. And a lot of the time he does go off like that. Like I said, and when my son was first born, I had the issue, I'm going to do another video about this in terms of my postpartum recovery. I had my stomach muscles all screwed up. It's called diastasis. It's either diastasis recti or diastasis recti. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's where your stomach muscles don't come back together once you've given birth. So like your belly really sticks out. But what it also means is that you have no core, so you have no strength. So your back, rather than, I mean, you don't realise when it comes to heavy lifting how much your stomach actually takes of that weight. You think it's all in your back, it's not. And it was only after when I suffered with this that I realised just how much help my stomach used to give my back, because I could barely lift my son for more than 30 seconds when he was newborn without being in excruciating pain with my back, and I could barely lift him. So when he had like colic or like really bad reflux or something, I couldn't comfort him. Like, he was screaming and I couldn't do anything because I couldn't hold him for long. So my husband would be the one that would comfort him and hold him, and yeah, and he also changes nappies, cleans up sick, he does all the other stuff. He just doesn't feed him, and that's fine. It's like he doesn't have a strained relationship with him. Like, he loves him just as much as he loves me, except with me he just knows if he's hungry he'll get food from me. So, and again, that's another thing as well. If you're breastfeeding like a newborn and they're upset, they'll want comfort from you, but obviously there'll be times when you're absolutely exhausted, you know they're not due a feed, so like you just want to go and have a shower, you just want to go and sleep for 10 minutes, then you can give the baby to the dad. And because if you try and comfort your baby, they're just going to be like rooting for the boob, because that's all they can smell on you. They can smell you, and you are food at that point. So giving your husband or your partner the baby while you go and off and do something else is another thing that helps them to bond. So when people say about like when you breastfeed, the partner doesn't get to bond as well, it's a load of bullshit, and don't listen. But I've just seen that my camera's running out of battery, so I better wrap this up. If anyone has any questions or... So the memory on my camera actually ran out before the battery did. Should have checked that really, shouldn't I? But yeah, so I've... Hello. Oh. Hey, say hello. Who's that? So I've cleansed the memory card of all the videos I could take off. So yeah, so I've cleansed the memory card of all the videos I could take off. So I was able to do this goodbye video. So quickly, just wanted to end the video by saying, if you have any questions or if you'd like to share your own breastfeeding journey, then please do so in the comments. It would be lovely to hear from you and lovely to start a discussion. And if you liked the video, then please subscribe to the channel. That would really help us out. You could also support us using Patreon. All the links will be in the description as well to our social media handles and stuff, where you can keep up to date with what we're doing. If you don't, if I don't post regularly on YouTube, I normally post regularly on social media. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and we shall see you in the next video.